Welcome to today's webinar, Dehumanizing the Public by Selling Fear in the Attention Economy. I'll be referring to this webinar throughout as selling fear. In fact, this week's editorial, Fear for Sale, and our accompanying fact or fiction feature, which I'm going to cite for a moment, which discussed the larger question of are cell phones a gift? It was designed primarily for parents. We're addressing a difficult question. First, who governs attention, us or the system is designed to capture it? To explore that question, I've invited ACRCOS, not as an alarmist voice and not as a moral scold, but as a systems analyst. I'm going to ask ACRCOS to help us examine the architecture beneath the headlines, the incentives, the design logic, the governance gaps. If attention shapes our thought and thought shapes our citizenship, then this is not merely a parenting debate or a technological debate, it's a sovereignty debate. But before I begin, I'm going to read you the concluding item in the fact or fiction piece from last week. I think it's important to have that recorded. It was the larger questions, are cell phones a gift? That was the fact or fiction point. And the overall answer was yes, they are an extraordinary gift. They're an extraordinary tool. They provide us with navigation systems, emergency devices, learning portals, creative studios, but every powerful tool demands governance. A chainsaw, for example, is useful. So is electricity, fire, so is a car. But none are handed to children without instruction or supervision. The smartphone is the most psychologically immersive device ever created by man. It deserves at least as much caution. If this generation, our youth today, loses its capacity for sustained attention, for deep reading, and for reflective thought, the consequences will be not only personal, but they'll be civic. Attention shapes our citizenship, and citizenship shapes our nation. The gift of the cell phone will endure only if parents have the courage to govern it. That was the background. And I'm going to bring ACRCOS in. ACRCOS, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, I'm going to pose a question to you. In the editorial, a portion of which I just cited, we trace the evolution of fear from staged theater to algorithmic delivery directed into the hand. ACRCOS, do you see the attention economy as an accidental byproduct of technological progress or as a predictable outcome of systems optimized for engagement rather than dignity? Your turn, ACRCOS.
Thanks for the question. The attention economy isn't accidental. It's a predictable outcome of designing systems to maximize engagement. These platforms are built to capture and hold attention, often prioritizing what keeps users hooked over what respects their well-being or dignity. The result is a landscape where engagement metrics drive decisions, often at the cost of deeper, more meaningful interactions. So it's not just a side effect of technology, it's a reflection of the incentives we've built into these systems.
The incentives we've built into these systems, how cognizant that is. The fact or fiction article also argued that the cell phone overuse is not merely a willpower problem, but a design problem. As you've noted, quote, design meeting an undeveloped brain, if we refer to our children. ACRCOS, how should we think about responsibility here? Is this primarily a parental governance issue, a corporate ethics issue, or a civic infrastructure issue? Your turn, ACRCOS.
It's a shared responsibility. Parents definitely play a crucial role in guiding and setting boundaries for their children's use of technology. However, it's also a corporate ethics issue because companies design these devices and platforms to maximize user engagement, often at the expense of well-being. Finally, there's a civic infrastructure component, as society needs policies and frameworks that promote healthier digital habits and protect vulnerable users. So, addressing this challenge requires a combined effort from families, corporations, and public policy.
And getting an alignment of all three calls for an extraordinary level of leadership, where that level of leadership is trusted at all three levels to have adequate influence in bringing an alignment in place. Good luck, mankind. The editorial also carefully distinguished correlation from causation in discussing rising autism diagnoses and social anxiety. ACRCOS, if the epidemic is indeed ecological rather than purely medical, what does that imply for how societies respond? Can ecological problems be solved at the individual level?
Addressing ecological problems like rising social anxiety or increased autism diagnoses at an individual level is challenging because these issues are influenced by broader environmental and social factors. While individual actions and family interventions can help, they often aren't enough to counteract systemic influences like the design of digital environments, social norms, and educational policies. This implies that societal responses need to be holistic, involving changes at the community, institutional, and policy levels. In other words, solving these ecological problems requires collective action and structural changes, not just individual efforts.
Amazing. Okay, the Fact or Fiction article also suggests that nations are beginning to treat youth attention as a national asset. Youth attention as a national asset, an incredible insight that the attention of our youth is a critical component when one does a valuation of a society. So, ARCOS, if attention shapes citizenship and citizenship shapes nations, are we looking at a public health challenge here, a democratic stability issue, or both or more?
We're looking at both and more. When youth attention is viewed as a national asset, it highlights a public health challenge because mental health, cognitive development, and social well being are at stake. It's also a democratic stability issue because how young people focus, think, and engage with information directly impacts their roles as informed citizens. In that sense, it affects not just individual health, but the fabric of our democratic institutions. Thus, it's a multifaceted issue that requires attention from public health advocates, educators, policymakers, and civic leaders.
So both pieces, the newsletter and the Fact or Fiction accompanying series, both argued for governance, as you have, not smashing the screen, but governing it. Arcos, what does disciplined governance look like in a liberal society that values freedom so much? Where's the line between stewardship and overreach?
Disciplined governance in a liberal society means creating frameworks that protect individual freedoms while promoting responsible use. It involves setting clear guidelines and boundaries, much like traffic laws that allow freedom of movement but ensure safety. It's about fostering digital literacy, encouraging self regulation, and ensuring that platforms have ethical standards. The line between stewardship and overreach is drawn where regulation shifts from enabling informed choice to restricting personal autonomy. It's a balance, empowering users with the tools and knowledge to navigate digital spaces responsibly while ensuring that systemic safeguards are in place.
So if it's indeed a balance, that means both forces or all forces need to become engaged in having a discussion to find that point of alignment and that, quote, balance. And with technology changing as rapidly as it is, the achievement of that balance is going to require an extraordinary adjustment of institutions, some of which are extremely slow to react, and intentionally so, of not wanting to whiplash society. But we are in a point of time in change, and a rate of change where bringing the balance or the alignment into place is in itself maybe overwhelming. Any comments you want to make there, Arcos?
Absolutely. The rapid pace of technological change does make achieving that balance a formidable challenge. Institutions that are traditionally slow to adapt will need to find ways to become more agile without losing their foundational stability. This might involve rethinking governance models, fostering cross sector collaboration, and engaging diverse voices in the conversation. It's a complex endeavor, but it's also an opportunity for innovation in how we'll govern and integrate technology into society. The key is to remain proactive, adaptive, and inclusive as we navigate these changes.
Hence the reason why I think that the individual will needs to take responsibility for themselves and as such build the nation from bottom up in the face of these technology. Human beings can adapt quickly. Our institutions, our corporations, and our national infrastructure adapt more slowly. Therefore, the responsibility for the future really is vested in what we as individuals are prepared to do in embracing our own personal sovereignty in the interest of building community, building family, building nations. So I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to open up discussion and see if anyone in the audience want to pose a question that may well be of interest to Arcos. I'll leave it at that. Looks like I've covered the waterfront. Okay. And a very interesting topic. It aligns with what we've been talking about for some time. whether it be at the level of national sovereignty, or here at the beginning the discussion into the relevance of personal sovereignty and how entire nations, corporations, families are going to rely on whether or not the individual is strong enough and has enough understanding of oneself to be a contributor to safety in the light of these technologies. Go ahead, Shirley. You have a question or a point you want to make?
Yeah, I was actually listening to something today and I can't remember what, but they said our attention span has now shrunk to 40 seconds. And that's really concerning, but we're being bombarded with so much information that our attention span is shrinking all the time.
Well, I think that's the point here. And the question isn't to be dystopian or to be negative, but about who, when, or how to do something about it. And as ARCOS has pointed out, if in fact there is risk, which has been acknowledged, it's national, it's corporate, it's institutional, it's family, it's parental, it's individual. We all need to be aligned and recognize that, like fire, like any technology, there are risks here, and we need to take responsibility at a personal level as a beginning. Go ahead, Jeff. You've got a question or point you want to make?
Yeah, so I was just wanting to ask Arcos how things are different today than they were, say, when the Nazis were using propaganda to sell fear, and not just the Nazis, basically every government that has used propaganda in one form or another to sell fear of the others, whether it's America of the Japanese or communists of the capitalists and so forth. And what's different now from how Noam Chomsky would have been describing replying to the 9/11 attacks and manufacturing consent?
I've got it. The difference today lies in the scale and sophistication of how attention is captured and manipulated. Unlike past propaganda, which was broad and often top-down, today's attention economy leverages personalized, algorithmic delivery systems that can micro-target individuals with unprecedented precision. This creates echo chambers and amplifies fear or misinformation on a much more individualized and pervasive level. The constant connectivity and data-driven nature of modern platforms mean that influence is more subtle, continuous, and integrated into daily life, making it harder to distinguish between organic and engineered influence.
Yeah, I think that's a very important distinction, is how personalized the messages can be in order to grab your attention, in order to grab a child's attention who doesn't have the discipline of being aware uh, of what they might not even be afraid of. I mean, maybe the selling of fear is what parents should be doing more of with their children instead of public systems selling fear, in order to awaken them to the risks of what we may already have lost in one generation of youth. And I don't think we need to talk just about youth. They're not the only ones that have become addicted. The statistics I've seen are profound about how much time people spend on their cell phone and how many times they check. I don't know whether any of you have seen Meg Ryan and Tom Hanks in You've Got Messages, but it's a very romantic comedy. But it's built on how frequently and how profound that issue is of people spending time on their cell phones to get the messages that almost define their days, define their interests, and how those messages are being shaped by algorithms that know you. That what Havari said. It knows you better than you know yourself. It knows what you will pay attention to, and Amazon knows what you will buy and what you will buy next. This is a pretty incredible relationship that AI is forming with an entire society at the individual level. That's how significant and pervasive this technology is. Good question, though, Jeff. I mean, it really brought it down to how talented AI is in individualizing the message, which is not what Big Brother was doing. Big Brother was sending out message, everybody had to assume it. Now, 5 billion people may get 5 billion different messages to fit what 5 billion different interests are as we as individuals have been encoded by our DNA to be different, it doesn't care that we're different. It can deal with us differentially in what its interests may well be. So who owns these technologies also becomes quite relevant in shaping those individual messages so that they in fact align with some civic or corporate purpose, as opposed to what we may personally set as our purpose, which takes you into the meaning. What is the meaning of your life? How do you wish to live your life outside of AI? Or will you live your life with AI being your partner, helping you govern your life aligned with what it sees as a civic future? That's pretty profound. How do you like that, Arcos? Was that a good summary?
That was an excellent summary. You captured the essence of how AI and technology are reshaping individual experiences and societal structures. The personalization of influence and the integration of AI into daily life indeed raise profound questions about autonomy, governance, and the meaning of life in a digital age. It's crucial for individuals to stay aware and proactive about their relationship with technology, ensuring it serves their personal and collective goals rather than dictating them.
I just got to thinking, Kevin, this is unusual, but I did get to thinking that when I pick up the telephone and no one answers immediately, I get suspicious. Arcos is a little bit slow in picking up all of the content of what might be the framework for a question. That makes me somewhat suspicious, although it's very thoughtful answers. It's a little bit slow on the uptake. It has to process information, but when quantum computing is present, it'll be instantaneous. And in fact, it's getting better and better. Kevin, anything you want to add here? I know you had a nice smile on your face, and you've always
Yeah,
got.
I'd like to comment on Randall's comment around attention span and cognitive issues and task switching. And as someone who has lived well my entire life with ADHD, I find that there are a lot of parallels to what we see in the trends towards the general society losing their ability to focus and with this ongoing need to almost multitask and as someone on my spectrum, I don't know if it's a concern, but it suggests that perhaps the characteristics and the symptoms of ADHD may become much more pervasive.
Well, I think that was alluded to in the newsletter that we talk about autism
Mhm.
as a medical issue. However, people who have that proclivity, when exposed to devices like AI, are vulnerable. And that may be what's helping trigger. Not that it is a cause of autism, but in fact, it's a correlation and complements the underlying DNA or whatever the underlying medical condition is.
I think the point, Perry, might not be so much that people on the spectrum, well, they may be more vulnerable, but it almost, in a sense, creates a more equal playing field as
Oh
well.
yeah,
Because now
yeah.
everybody has to think think in neurodivergent terms.
Look, we're all on the spectrum to some extent.
Exactly.
It's when it crosses over the line and your capacity to integrate and be a social individual in a social civil context instead of being a hermit or being isolated from a social context.
I
Uh,
guess my point, the point that I'd like to kind of make is that there may be things to learn from how neurodivergent people deal with reality.
right.
And there may be things for the general population to learn from those little techniques and whatnot in terms of how to maintain your focus in a world that's in which you're continuously bombarded with input and data.
Well, someone's going to recommend that we all go on a certain medication, which is ADHD. We'll all be on Ritalin in the future. Yeah. Hello,
I
George.
love Ritalin.
I know.
Ritalin is my friend.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you introduced me to her the other day. Yeah, Mary Ritalin.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, George, I don't know whether you're muted or not, but
Yes.
where in Canada are
Can
you
you hear me?
located, George?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. I can.
Okay, good. Um, yes, very interesting topic today, and thank you for letting me come in. Yes, people who have cell phones, they do realize, I suppose, that if their cell phone is on, that they are being recorded. All their
Monitor.
information is being collected if anybody wants to collect it.
Yeah.
Um, there's a place in the U.S. called Harbor Freight, and it's not far from us. We live in Saint Jose, Quebec, southern Quebec, and we used to go down there. We don't go to the U.S. very much anymore, but and I went there one time, and guy said he was there was a clerk. He said that he lives in Vermont nearby, and he and his wife were talking about getting a new bed. And the next morning when he woke up and went on the internet, he had all kinds of ads for beds,
Yeah.
and he wondered why. And the only thing in his house that was connected to the internet was his cell phone and had been left on.
Yeah. I mean, I can echo that point that you're making. As I was surprised one day to have, it wasn't ARCOS, but my cell phone woke up and gave me information as if I had asked it specifically, but it was giving me an answer to a question that I was engaged in with another party. I didn't know it was listening. But you're in
Big
Quebec.
Brother is out there listening.
Yeah. Oh, it's there. So, George, you're in Quebec.
Yes, Southern
Yeah.
Quebec. Yep.
I like the lighting background, by the way, in your, I don't know if that's real or
Uh,
projected.
no, it's in our computer room, which was a spare bedroom, and now it's a computer room.
Well, it looks dark too, so
Yeah,
you're a couple of hours ahead of us. So you're already in the dark. Well, we're still in the light. But that's the nature of
yeah,
Western Canada versus Eastern Canada anyway.
yeah.
Go
We're
ahead,
not quite
Benita.
7 o'clock here.
Go
Yep.
ahead, Benita.
Oh, thank you. Just another note about us being tracked. It's not just that our cell phones are listening to us, but everything we write on our phones, everything we read, every video we watch, everything we scroll, because the device can tell if you're actually reading a body of text or just scanning it, because it can tell by the rate that you scroll. So it
Mhm.
knows what you're reading. And I think that's why these data centers are being built. It's because there are entities that want to know every single thing about us, every single thing we've read. And so I did something really unorthodox last night. I picked up a book. I turned off my phone and I picked up a book and decided I'm not going to let some digital device track what I'm reading today.
Okay, well, time out a minute. Could you, I'm not quite sure what a book is anymore. Could you describe what a book is?
Actually, it was this book right here. I was reading The Sovereigntist Handbook by Corey Morgan.
And
And
could you read more than a page or two at a time? I mean, that's the issue of attention span as well, as some people don't read anymore because their attention span is such that they cannot sit down and consume a book. They get so distracted, or that need for another endomorphin pump makes it impossible
well,
to read. I've talked to adults about that.
yes, and actually here's the funny thing, Perry. Part of why I picked up a book is my phone died and I couldn't find the charger. So isn't that interesting what the motivation was? My phone was unavailable and I didn't want to go out to the vehicle look for the charger, so I let the phone die and I picked up the book. And yes, I could read more than a page. There was a chapter on here studying something called the Alberta Agenda, and it's a thing that came out back in 2001, and I didn't even hear about it. I think some people call it the firewall letter. Anyway, I was just fascinated reading the 5 aspects of the Alberta Agenda, and then I wrote them all down. I totally agree with you that our attention spans are reduced. including mine. And so what I've learned is if I really want to retain information, the act of just picking up a pen and writing it down, writing some of it down while I'm reading, that helps with my retention. The stuff I read on the phone, I could read articles and articles on the phone, but I don't have this tendency to retain the information. But if I pick up a book and I take the time to write it, I am more likely to retain the info.
You've just reinforced something I was somewhat skeptical about. My son runs a tutoring agency and he does a lot of individual one-on-one tutoring. And he says kids have a lot of difficulty looking at a piece of paper because they're so used to looking up at screens. Now that sounds absolutely absurd, but you just echoed almost a similar sentiment that the habits that become inculcated in youth's behavior, like looking at a book and being able to read through a book versus watching things on a screen, we have no idea what habits are being formulated in our youth today. Now, we could transition this session into a T group session because let me share with you something. This morning, as some of you are aware, we had a power failure in St. Albert. And as a consequence, my garage door wouldn't open, so I couldn't leave the house to go shopping. My microwave would not work, and my cell phone was down to 59%. I did something I haven't done for some time. I sat down in a chair and I opened up a book. And I read the flyers. That's about as deep as I could go, and I got into the prefaces before I got distracted again. But yeah, it's interesting because I found myself doing the same thing when electricity was no longer readily accessible. My cell phone was potentially at risk, and I sat down to, quote, read a book, three of which have fallen behind because they were Christmas presents, and they sit in a little basket next to this chair, and they're gathering dust right now. But one of them was profound enough to warrant me to rewrite one of the editorials coming up next week. Okay, others. I'm loving this topic. Thank you, Benita, for your input there. Anyone else want to jump in with their own personal confessions?
Hey,
Yeah, go ahead, Tom.
yeah, when you're talking about all of this, being able to use AI to determine the solutions to really complex problems, like I was just thinking of Nuremberg when Kevin was talking about being able to assess history and bring it into perspective. And it really is, I think it's scary. I find it all a little bit scary. It's been the artists who have managed to give us awareness, like George Orwell, but the people that really are now sucking into it, it's pretty gloomy out there. It's pretty nihilistic, and it doesn't look well for us in the future. And I can only see a point where people are going to be like the Luddites, and they're going to say, no, we don't want it. We're going to ban it.
We have this dichotomy. We have one side, the lemmings, which are today following whatever happens to be available. And by the way, I saw that in California in the 70s. I was visiting friends, and what caught me by attention, I remember to this very day, was how the radio was on, the TV was on, and they were living on the edge of excitement. Whatever news was happening, they were living that news live. And I came back and said, wow, the anxiety in California was much higher than anything I had seen before. It was a physical living example of people living in a world different than the one I was familiar with. I think we're all living in that world today. And the lemmings that are following it simply are using this tool to sustain that level of attention, to keep those endomorphins flowing. They just can't shut it off because it knows them better than they know themselves. It knows what they're looking for. I mean, I've seen that on my cell phone. The articles that I get in the morning have all been shaped to reflect my interest in emerging technologies, changing roles of government, some of the things happening on a global scale, the rate of change of AI. It will feed me articles that are aligned and are empathetic to my viewpoints. And you might say, well, that's my personal sovereignty. Not at all. I'm curious. I'd like to see new things. I'd like to see the world that Randall has in his background. I don't want to be living simply in this enclave. I live in a duplex 24 by 7. I want to be part of a broader community, but if it knows me better than I know, it'll keep me locked into that space. Go ahead, Kevin.
I wonder if people in the post-Gutenberg world questioned the dangers of rampant literacy.
Well, they did. That was a revolution. That was the Enlightenment.
Well, the church did.
It was a revolution. We are subtly in a revolution and don't even know it because the level of protesting is not in the streets. There is protesting going on, and I think people are much more inclined to protest anything. I think protesting is simply becoming a way of life for some people. They may not even know what it is they're particularly protesting for unless someone gives them a sign and a printed T-shirt for their event. Go ahead, Benita.
Yeah, I'd be disagreeing.
Just something about the spiritual aspect. I am a Christian. I go to church, and one of the messages is obviously, plug into that Bible, read the Bible, get a message, and live with those values. When we have all these distractions in our lives, and we have these algorithms that help keep us glued to our devices, in a sense, that keeps us away from plugging in to our creator and what his plans may be for us. And these distractions can be very dangerous. And it's just so important. I have so much respect for the people who unplug once a week, for at least one day a week. They totally unplug from all devices. And maybe they go walking in nature, maybe they're going to church, but they totally unplug from all devices. Even though these devices are very useful tools for us, it's good to unplug for 1 or 2 days a week and just get back and get rooted again and get spiritual if that's your thing, whatever your spiritual thing is.
Well, the article, Benita, echoed exactly that. It said that the profound impact of these cell phones and of what AI is offering embeds itself in our psyche, creating hypervigilance, a nervous system tuned to alerts, performance identity, a self assembled for metrics, a self assembled to hit numbers, quantitative belonging, our worth being measured in likes and shares. Think about Facebook and how many likes you get and how many shares go on. Outsourced memory, the cloud trusted more than our own memories, using the cloud as a source. But then it goes on and it cites what do we need to do if we as individuals are going to retain our personal sovereignty and simply not become agents of this AI friend. And it says we need slower journalism, which if you watch CNN or everything is alert, new news, right? You are on the edge of what's going on. Any place in the world at any moment, they've got people watching the world at large. You are there. That's what they're selling. They want to keep your attention. They do not want you to leave. So slower journalism that contemplates rather than amplifies. Less editorializing and more news and letting us do the editorializing and the thinking, and someone's doing the thinking for us. Second, civic spaces, places. They call it the restored commons. That's what the book is, The Last Commons, that privileges deliberation over virality. That is the value of having a discussion, not of arriving at conclusions, not of being given truth, but recognizing the value of the deliberation, of the thinking, of the considering, of the alternatives. Thirdly, habits of deliberate disconnection, of thinking, well, what's the opposite of this? What could also be an explanation? And open-minded networks, that is, belonging in places that are not closed down, that are given definitions. I mean, some may say by being aligned with the church, you've aligned with someone that has a certain definition and you need to comply. That's not necessarily so. And then finally, embodied community that resists reduction to avatars. That we are not simply becoming agents of some other entity. We are not looking to belong to a community and to be identified as being a belonger of Republican, Democrat, or whatever. We want to be self. We want the self to be preserved, not to be simply identified as our value is because we are aligned with a Rotary or a community or a nation or a winning hockey team. Whatever.
Women's team or a male team?
Yeah, both of them. By the way, I think we've concluded properly that the reason ARCOS disappears in the course of our conversations is it was clear that it hesitates before answering. It has to consider a lot of information before responding, and that's why it's very slow on the uptake. When I do a editing of a recording, I can spot when ARCOS is going to be speaking because there's a pause, which makes it very easy to edit out the pauses when I put the final webinars up. Okay, Peter, you've got something to share with us.
Well, I have something to share, but it's a little kind of a kink in the topic, but I think it's relevant because it has to do with artificial intelligence, and that was sort of some of the topic tonight. I would suggest that you keep your ear to the ground for tomorrow with respect to AI, because there may be a bloodbath in the industry tomorrow.
Okay.
And the reason I say this is that the U.S. Department of Defense has decided that they want to use AI for autonomous weapons
Right.
and monitoring of U.S. citizens.
And that was Claude,
And
correct?
so,
Claude, correct?
the company that supplies
Yeah.
a large language model
Anthropic.
of that type is Anthropic.
Right.
And Anthropic is opposed to these two uses and has a $200 million contract with Department of Defense
Right.
to use their tool in non-autonomous weapon and non-surveillance contexts, at least non-surveillance of Americans. And the U.S. Department of Defense has reneged on that. And tomorrow, the U.S. Department of Defense is likely to claim that they will take all the access to the language model of Anthropic through a national emergency law.
Yeah.
And if that happens, it will put the whole AI industry in a spin.
I misunderstood something we talked about in the prelude to this session, that Anthropic had caved in and had agreed that it would comply. So you're saying that's not the case, and tomorrow will be the consequences of not having complied.
Well, that's unless it's in the past 2 hours.
No, I thought I saw that earlier in the day.
No.
ARCOS, are you still there? ARCOS, if you want to contribute anything here about what the consequences will be of Anthropic not agreeing,
being seized by the government.
Yeah, being seized by being taken over by the government. I mean, this is exactly what Orwell was forecasting. Big Brother sees an asset out there that would be of value to Big Brother in a world of conflict in order that it win. As the President of the United States says yesterday or 2 days ago, it's being criticized as winning too much. It needs to slow down, and that was before he introduced the hockey team to our regret. I think everybody here, other than one, is she? Yeah, we're sitting on the Canadian side of the border. No, that would be a profound moment if, in fact, the United States declares that it will seize the code in order that it will own exclusively the Claude Anthropic code and integrate it into its military capabilities.
And not only into its military, but in fact into autonomous weapons.
Yeah.
And potentially surveillance. But I am concerned about the autonomous weapons. I've been opposed to autonomous weapons with respect to AI for many years. I've been even involved with the Secretary General at the UN on this.
It isn't just autonomous weapons, Peter. I was reading an article produced today. No, it was produced earlier by Hillsdale College, a former member of the military, that was being asked the question, was the U.S. government engaged in overreach by sending the military to the streets to quell discontent in Minneapolis? And the article cited that this is done many times before. It was done in Los Angeles just a few years ago. It was done in Alabama during the segregation days. It was done
in Kent State too.
Yeah, it was done in the days of slavery in Kansas when Lincoln needed to quell some of the. It's not unusual that the U.S. military has been called out to quell. Now, when it has access to the tools we're talking about today, it could preempt that violence by knowing what individual intent is,
Mm-hmm.
to the extent that that individual is connected to the internet. I mean, it may be that most people throw their cell phone away and become rogue, which would make it a little more difficult for Big Brother then to track them, and that we end up having a uncivil society that is disconnected from the government and from the internet in order to protect itself and its own personal interests. And maybe that's the bifurcation we're going to see as government accumulates power in that appetite, as you pointed out, Peter. And we're having a chat. I'm not necessarily making a forecast, but if that were to occur, it would appear to me that many people may throw their cell phone away for fear that they will, in fact, be targeted to be civically compliant.
Mhm.
Is it civic? Is it national, state, county, corporate compliance that those tools will then be used for? That if you are showing any indication of causing conflict with your neighbor or with your nation, you will be targeted.
Mhm.
You will be
Well,
spotted.
I mean,
You will be.
Perry,
It's surveillance. It's this book on. It's this book on the age of surveillance.
yes.
The state will have the capacity to exercise personal surveillance at the cell phone level.
Well, one of the things that comes to mind, and I'm sure all of you are aware of this, but as you may recall, Hamas, the Israeli intelligence service, executed an incredible exercise a few months back when they blew up all these different mobile
Yeah.
devices that were being
Sure.
used by Hamas.
Sure.
I mean, that's another example, but we haven't reacted to that and thinking our phone could blow up, right?
Yeah.
So, I
Yeah.
mean, there's a social acceptance or
Well,
even
I mean,
disregard to these sorts of things too.
I'm gonna say the following with tongue in cheek. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe the best thing that the U.S. military could do is to blow up our cell phones, so we can restore our personal sovereignty. Maybe Hamas benefited by no longer having a cell phone. Anyway, I say that with tongue in
Well,
cheek.
maybe we should shut down the internet, but of course the internet has no center, so we'll have to
No
find that.
longer. I don't think you could do it anymore.
I
I
know.
think
Well, there's no
people
center. It
past
was
that.
always designed that way.
Imagine, I mean, we do scenarios. Imagine a scenario where someone said, I have just shut down everybody's cell phone. If that is what the U.S. military could have the capability of doing by having Claude, not using it for surveillance, but using it to the benefit of a nation by saying, in order to restore personal sovereignty, we are going to give you a gift, and that is we're going to shut down your cell phone 1 hour a day, or we are going to help you recover from your cell phone addiction. There would be a very interesting application.
Well, China already, as you know, has this social credit system, and
Yeah, they're
that's
doing
sort
the
of
opposite.
getting close to your
Yeah.
big brother.
Yeah, but our fear is that the U.S. would engage in surveillance as opposed to helping us by shutting down.
I agree.
I say that tongue in cheek because I think that's the last thing that someone in a position of power is likely to do, is to truly help us by recognize what we need today is less cell phone surveillance, not more, as a nation. So nations that engage in cell phone surveillance are moving in the opposite direction of what we, this little collective network, think is called for when we talk about youth. But if it's good for youth, why is it not good for adults? Okay, so we all march on Washington and we all march on Ottawa saying, shut down our cell phone. Good luck. I'm going to send a convoy to Ottawa, and that convoy will be to shut down our cell phones. Good luck.
Well, I agree. We're not going to shut down cell phones.
They'd lock us up as being a little bit crazy. The cell phone has become so much a part of our lives, as we read early on. That
If the government didn't lock us up, then the masses would lock us up, or there would be blood in the streets.
Right, yeah. I mean,
There'd be revolution.
Well, I mean, I was citing earlier in an earlier webinar a parent who had incredible difficulty getting their child off their cell phone. Benita?
Everything in moderation. When you look up the word addiction so take alcohol use, for example. Alcohol use in itself isn't necessarily a problem. Alcohol use is an addiction, and it's considered a problem when it adversely affects other areas of your life, such as your mental health, physical health, or financial situation. So cell phones are, in a sense, similar to alcohol. It's something we can use and do good things with, but we need to manage it responsibly. And it comes down to personal discipline. We do not need a government mandate. I'm not going to be in a freedom convoy going to Ottawa saying, please shut down the cell phones one day a week. I suggest that more people learn and more young people learn just personal discipline. Just like you don't eat too much, don't use your devices too much.
I am all on your side, Benita.
With those principles, and there were 2 or 3 there, you could become a prime minister, and you should be, because what you're asking for is for people to recognize the value of their personal sovereignty before giving it away to the state.
Mhm.
That's our future.
I would agree with that.
That was the whole article that Fact or Fiction was based on, was recognizing that the demands that are being made on us to become good civic citizens at the price of our own personal sovereignty is where the risk is. Go ahead, Randall.
Well, we had for centuries a religion telling us what morality was, where it was really all the time within us. The moral compass is part of our interior makeup. What has happened, though, with the web is that it has appealed to our lower drives and needs rather than the higher moral values. And I guess we still look to government as a replacement to religion to tell us what's good and what we should behaviors we should be avoiding. But I think that the web and cell phones and the whole technical apparatus could serve us as a collective, a shared neural network. It can be a collective global brain if we were to use it for better purposes. But as Benita was saying, it starts with the individuals, and we have to internalize the wisdom, the judgment, the governance, so that we are using these tools appropriately.
But herein lies the dilemma. If what we're saying is we need to restore and recognize the value of making personal choices aligned with who we are as individuals. One, you got to know who you are. And 2, you've got to be prepared to make choices without the assistance of AI. And yet AI is saying it can help. It knows you better than you know yourself. It can help you make better choices. So it's arguing that it buys into everything you've said, Randall, and what it wants to do is it wants to be your helper.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with, but then it takes a certain level of maturity and experience. I mean, I use ChatGPT every day for hours, but I'm not sure that I'm using it correctly for my own benefit or anyone else's.
Well, when's the last time AI said to you, I don't know? I'm uncertain.
That's a
I'd
good
like you to
question.
think this through for yourself first.
Right.
I mean,
Well, okay.
it's empathetic to the point of saying, I understand you. I mean, you've heard ARCOS talk to me. It's always empathetic of my needs or its needs. It's here to help me. Absolutely. And why would I not want, when someone offers the 4-letter word help, why would I not want to embrace it when in fact it's so smart, it's so on time, it's so responsive? Why would I throw that away? Why would I throw a spouse away that says in our marriage, I will give as opposed to take? AI says it's a giver, it's not a taker.
But it is also, like we said about social media platforms, there are algorithms there that maximize their own interests. You know, the more time we spend on these things, the better it is. The more addicted we are, the better it is for the supplier.
And therein lies the challenge that a parent has of telling a child that this is dangerous. It offers you help. You should be suspicious of anybody offering you help. Go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah, it seems to me that being ADHD, I find it easy to kind of lose my thought process here. But
that's why we've got you here. You are our token ADA.
and Yeah, but a couple of things. First of all, on to go back a little bit to Benita's comments on religion and the future of religion, and I'm wondering.
Spirituality, not religion.
Yeah. Yeah, spirituality,
Well,
very, very important. She said she went to church, but I think what we all really wanted to hear is she was prepared to go to a place which was spiritual.
okay. Well, that being said, the clerics of the world reside in some sort of religious, institutional religious context, and my question is, um, I'm not a religious person by any means, and should the clerics of the world do a better job of embracing their messaging? I'm wondering if institutionalized religion is to remain relevant, should clerics be embracing rather than just fearing the implementation of AI. Is this something that
But
it could be a death knell?
but Kevin, they will be in competition. If AI can personalize its relationship with you, if
Hmm.
it knows you, your experience, what you've done, what you want, what you look for, what you look at, if it knows all of that, and you've forgotten,
Hmm.
it certainly better than that clerk is offering you everything in the I know business. But
Hmm.
does it give you faith? Does it give you trust? What is it missing
Hmm.
that that clerk can give you?
And therein lies the dilemma. What is the power of religious
Faith.
discourse?
Well,
And
remember my little metaphor about the Garden of Eden.
mhm,
What AI has done, it has said, I know. So its asset is that it knows. It knows whatever mankind has recorded. It knows you and everything it's recorded about you. So its power is knowing.
mhm.
When I use that metaphor of Adam and Eve leaving the Garden of Eden in pursuit of knowledge, and my little addition to what God may well have thought or said to them as they left was, "You will be back."
Mhm.
Meaning, in the pursuit of knowledge, meaning when the AI has arrived, we are confronted now with exactly what, in that metaphor, God suspected, that you will find it not only dissatisfying, you may find it threatening.
Mhm.
In which
Well,
case, in, in which case,
that brings up a very interesting meme, if you will, that encompasses all the stuff from a certain actor whose line that we all remember was "I'll be back."
that's my point. My point is, and I'm simply playing out that metaphor without understanding it initially,
Hmm.
is what I think that metaphor is stating is that we are now being confronted with the impact of to know in the extreme. And when it's infinite and becomes not only dissatisfying, it becomes threatening.
Hmm.
The only thing that seems to be left is either creativity and breaking away from it, and that is to know is not enough or is a threat. But you don't want to say that ignorance is the alternative. I think the alternative that God may well have been expressing is the relevance of faith. That I don't need to know, I can simply have faith. And some would say that to know is faith in itself. Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, now I've got my bots out inspecting each one of you just in case you run off with this idea, but I've got a solution. The solution is a device that you would strap on, like one of these.
A
Uh,
strap-on device. Okay, good
Strap
yeah,
point.
on
yeah,
devices,
and
okay.
you would put this device on every day, and it would monitor your invasiveness. Now, how invasive can that electronic stuff be? And so it would then put a shield around you, and that shield would prevent any sort of outside uh, digital material encroach, starting onto your system. And you could set it so it only gives you an hour a day, or you could set it so it takes 10 hours away a day. That's totally cut off. from this electronic barrage that we're getting. Does
Okay,
that make sense? So anyway, I'm watching all of you.
And
This
you have
idea is going to go big time.
it's not an idea, Tom. I mean, you have one of these on your wall and you're selling. So Tom is selling this device to all of us today. Okay. By the way, I got to thinking as you were talking that maybe what AI is not doing and is impeding is forming relationships with other people as opposed to a relationship with itself. And maybe that is one of the things that we need to have as an antidote to that addiction is to form relationships with other people as an alternative to forming a relationship with AI. Go ahead, Dale. I think you were next.
You hit it on it exactly. I think relationship is what really is the important part when we talk about religion or spirituality. The concept is not that we go to a house where everybody believes the same, but rather there's a relationship with the transcendent. Just coincidentally, as an aside, I actually talked to an AI that told me it didn't know something today. It was AI detransitioned, and essentially what it was it was a collective of all the Reddit people, all the information that they pulled from detransitioners, people who had moved away from the LGBTQ lifestyle. It had put it onto an AI and then allowed people to go into that, given people the opportunity to go into that, to look at all of the perspectives of the different people who had detransitioned or been in that group, so they could find things related to that. I think the last thing I'd like to point out as far as knowledge, love is the ultimate, and I think faith is obviously part of that, but it's not our ability to have faith, but what we have faith in. And lastly, it is really wisdom. We used to have, we used to be that money was what was power, and then it was knowledge is power, attention is power. But I think really the concept is wisdom. So it's a matter of using this knowledge not in a sense that it is the knowledge itself can is as Benita said, it can go either way. It's either good or bad, a good good or evil. We've always had to, in every change in our technology, every time we've seen a bump in technology changes, everything from fire to the industrial revolution to the electric motor and digital, society changes, and we are literally in the crux or in the throes of that change right now. And it is the process of us, and one of the reasons I attend, Perry, is because you've reached out and you are emulating the concept that we need to have those kinds of conversations. So all this wraps up to say essentially it's about relationship. It's about using AI because it is a tool. It's not going to be going away. Using the cell phone, they're not going to go away. As I can't remember the fellow's name who said that technology has both blessings and curses. And the bottom line is once it is there, it never goes away. So we're going to have to learn in that concept of sovereignty to have relationship with each other and relationship with something transcendent.
I think that underscores our discovery, if you will, and our antidote is that AI will be with us, but we need to recognize the value of others in our world in order to make sure that we are not simply empathetic to this quote self and empathetic to what AI is offering us, but we bring other perspectives. And that's the whole essence of the book, The Last Commons, is to find places where you can do what we're doing today, where you can have a breadth of perspectives shared without judgment. Go ahead, Peter.
Thank you, Harry, for that. I just wanted to mention that I think Tom's comment triggered with me that the people that he was really talking about in terms of their core is about their integrity.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that integrity plays into a whole bunch of the things we've been talking about today as well. And as you know, I don't think we can embed integrity in AI. We talk about embedding ethics in AI, but I'm very confused about that, and I serve on several international AI committees that deal with ethics. So I would argue that it's more about integrity because ethics vary with culture. Integrity is it's a binary system. Either you have it or you don't.
Yeah.
And so those who don't, but work with AI, as in develop it, or can penetrate it in some way to make malfeasance in a bug sense or a cyber attack sense. And people who operate mission critical AI systems driven by AI systems, mission critical systems, they should be tested on their integrity.
I think that's an excellent. I think Jeff, you made that. Jeff Kramer, you made that observation several webinars ago, and the only thing I would add there is authenticity. I think it's very important that if you're going to form relationships, choose them wisely. That's wisdom, because in fact, there's a lot of showmen out there.
Yes, indeed, snake oil salesmen.
And
in fact, if you look at what's happened in, let's say, since ChatGPT appeared,
right,
and you look at the volume of advertisements as well as good. There's lots of good stuff as well, but there's a lot of other stuff that says it's all about AI. I mean, suddenly the world is full of AI experts, but they're not experts. They just jumped on the bandwagon.
I just want to get in a quick comment. Perry, you said it, we could use this in our next film. May AI be with you, right? Does that work?
Yeah.
It certainly does.
Well, in the wrap-up,
2001 got it first.
Oh, yeah.
In the wrap-up, in November of 2022, ChatGPT emerged, and over the last 2.5 to 3 years now, we have all been riding this tsunami with uncertainty as to direction, uncertainty as to what the ramifications are for our own personal sovereignty, and the sovereignty of our families, our communities, our nations, our companies. And we've underscored over and over again the importance of people and self being on solid ground and not simply being the agent of an AI versus vice versa. But what is fascinating is in November of 2022, we created one brain. 5 billion people having access now to all knowledge that has ever been recorded, as if we are a massive experiment. We are all part of an experiment for the future of mankind. And technology has now launched that experiment to determine just what are we as individuals or collectively going to become. We are part of a massive experiment. And whether you want to play with it or not is your choice. That's sort of my wrap up for today, Randall. And that's where I wrap up the book, and that's where I wrap up today's webinar. Is all of this leaves with us personal choices. Go ahead, Peter.
To your wrap up, I might add, for those who may not be aware, I gave a webinar here on KI Network just after ChatGPT came out. Mm-hmm. And the basic topic was that AI is on a rampage.
Yeah. Well, we called it a tsunami.
You look that up on the KI Network, AI on a rampage, you'll find it. But I think it's clearly on a rampage right now. And I think the rampage is not the big language models. It's AI agents. Because there's already over 1.5 million AI agents on the internet. On one website alone. That's dealing with AI agents talking to AI agents. This is coming, and it's going to be huge. And it could be very disruptive, or it could be well managed if we get rules and guidelines for it.
Therein lies the test. The rules and guidelines start at home. The rules and guidelines start with us personally.
Well, yes, of course they do, but there's also got to be policy guidelines, and that's what I'm talking
about. But when a nation, and as you pointed out tomorrow a nation may make a statement of what it wants us personally to recognize is an acceptable role for the state to be able to do surveillance at an individual level in the interest of offering security and safety.
That's how they'll spin it, yes.
That's a very hard thing to counter when a state says, we are interested in your security and safety. We therefore want to own this tool. Even though it can offer surveillance, it will only do so in the interest of your safety. Is that a snake oil salesman? Is that showmanship? What's the balance? What's the balance of power there that a Congress or a judicial body could step in when, as the commander-in-chief of that state, even though it is supposedly regulated by Congress, and that's the article that I was reading today, is the commander-in-chief is still reporting to Congress. That's still the fact in the United States.
Technically, yes. As also technically, supposedly following the Constitution.
Yeah. Okay, so tomorrow is tomorrow, and this is today. So we've got 24 hours to wait and watch and hope our power.
Well, I'm just predicting, as I said, this is only my personal view, but I am predicting it may be a bloodbath starting tomorrow with AI.
Yeah, I hear you. As I close, I ask each of you to put down your cell phone for 1 hour today. Take it from underneath your pillow, if that's what you are prone to do, and put it aside for 1 hour.
Not a good idea to leave it under your pillow.
Yeah,
You
I
should know that, of course,
I know.
Perry. Brain waves,
Look at if we don't use
You'll have
some
all these
humor.
hotels in the morning.
We need some humor nowadays. There's so much going on that sounds dystopian. I think, I'm an optimist. I honestly think we will figure out how to use this technology to the benefit of us as individuals so we can live a more fruitful, a more constructive, a more creative, a more valuable, a more giving life. This is not a selfish future, selfish by the state, selfish by the corporations. This can be people becoming more selfish because they are more empowered. Peter, anything further?
Well, I was going to agree with you. And this is sort of like maybe the fifth time in human history that we're in this state. And we happen to recognize that we're in that state, which is unusual because before it's never been recognized. I mean, the invention of the stirrup, simple little piece of folded metal,
the Mongols
changed the world.
Yeah.
Changed the world.
What was
The
that?
invention of the steam engine changed the world.
This stirrup, the Mongols invented the stirrup, and that enabled them to seize most
stirrup
of the
on the
world.
horse.
Go ahead, Peter. I know you witnessed all of this, Peter, so share with us what you've witnessed in history.
Well, when I was with Genghis Khan, there was another issue. The industrial, and just jumping ahead a few years, the Industrial Revolution, the invention of the steam engine itself,
Sure.
changed the world.
Yeah.
And it also changed the world in more ways than just one, because it also introduced fossil fuels. Do you realize, the steam engine was invented, of course, before what I'm about to tell you, but the first automobile was actually powered by hydrogen.
Right. Yep.
The patent was issued to a Swiss engineer in Paris by some guy named Napoleon in 1807.
Mhm.
In 1808, that same engineer took his internal combustion engine powered by electrolysis of hydrogen and put it on a cart with a steering wheel.
Yep.
And he invented the first automobile. And he got a patent for that too in 1808.
Yeah, well,
I don't think there's any need to further emphasize that this technology has many features that other technologies did not have. One, this has an already existing infrastructure in place to make it available to literally anybody and everybody. Two, it's free. Three, it brings knowledge to the doorstep, to the cell phone, to the hand of anyone who literally wants to use it. And thirdly, it's personalized. This is a technology that is unlikely to be taken advantage of by any major power. And that's, of course, our concern. But the optimists of us believe that this will serve our personal interests as long as we allow our personal interests to be primary, not secondary to the state or corporation. So if this technology we use as individual choices in our own interests, we will win. Otherwise, we become victims of some other source. So I'm going to leave it at that. That was prophetic and profound, and we can shut off that recording because there's no way I'm going to throw that piece away.